My life was a whirlwind of meetings, sales pitches, and endless negotiations. I'm Anna, 38, and I've climbed my way up to sales director at one of the top car manufacturers. My world was about hitting targets and sealing deals, not romance or late-night dates. I had a plush apartment in the city center, a sleek, top-of-the-line car, and a wardrobe that screamed success. Love? It never topped my priority list. Then Alex walked into my office, a fresh hire, 15 years my junior, with a smile that could knock you off your feet. Anna, right? I've heard a lot about you. Looking forward to learning from the best, he said, extending his hand. His confidence was off the charts for someone so new. Hope you're ready to work hard, I replied, taking his hand. It was firm, confident. This place doesn't run on smiles alone. Alex nodded. Absolutely. I'm here to give it my all. Our interactions were professional at first. But Alex had this way about him, a charm that was hard to ignore. He'd drop by my office with reports, always eager to discuss strategies or the next big sale. His enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself looking forward to our little meetings. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Alex knocked on my office door as I was about to leave. Fancy grabbing a bite? My treat. I've got a few ideas I'd love to run by you. I hesitated. It wasn't like me to mix work with personal time, but something about his offer was tempting. Sure, why not? But I'm choosing the place, I said. Dinner was a revelation. Alex wasn't just a pretty face with a sales pitch. He was smart, insightful, and, surprisingly, wise beyond his years. He listened intently as I shared some of my experiences, nodding and throwing in his 2 cents. As the night wore on, the conversation shifted from work to personal stories. I found out he was passionate about cars, not just selling them, but understanding their mechanics, their soul. He had this dreamy look when he talked about his favorite models, which made me laugh. You're like a kid in a candy store, I teased. He shot back, and you're the tough cookie everyone's afraid to crumble. Heard the rumors, you know. But I think there's more to you. His words caught me off guard. No one had dared to speak to me so frankly in years. It was refreshing, unsettling even. As we parted ways that night, he said, "Thanks for giving me a chance, Anna. Not just at work. Tonight was nice." I found myself smiling all the way home. Alex had managed to chip away at the wall I'd built around myself, and I was both terrified and thrilled by it. Our relationship evolved quickly after that night. His attention wasn't just flattering, it felt genuine. He'd leave notes on my desk with silly jokes or quotes from our conversations. And his bright, beautiful way of looking after me made my doubts about the age and income difference seem insignificant. But love isn't just about the butterflies or the stolen glances across a crowded room. It's about choosing to stand by someone, to merge your lives together with all the risks it entails. When Alex asked me to marry him, my heart wanted to leap out and say yes, before my brain could catch up with all the reasons it was a bad idea. You sure about this, Alex? I mean, look at us. I could practically be your... Stop. He cut me off, his eyes serious. I don't care about the age thing, Anna. I love you. That's all that matters. And your money? Come on, we both know I'm not with you for that. His words were like a balm to my nagging doubts. Alright, but we're doing this as equals, got it? We split everything down the middle. Wouldn't have it any other way, he replied, pulling me into a hug. So, we did. We combined our lives, our finances, everything. I even helped him climb the ladder at work, sharing tips and advice that only years in the industry could teach. He was a quick study, impressing everyone, including my boss. Our partnership seemed unshakable. Life with Alex was like stepping into a fast car with a full tank, ready for the long haul. We decided early on to handle our dough like a team, splitting expenses down the middle, half to us, half to a joint account we set up. Makes sense, right? Keeps things square, I said, laying out the plan on our kitchen table, scattered with bills and our laptops. Damn straight, Alex agreed, tapping away on his calculator. And hey, about the apartment. It's ours, babe. Your name's going on that mailbox too. I cut in before he could get all shy about living in my upscale pad. His grin was all the thanks I needed. And when I handed him the keys to a shiny new car a week later, his eyes about said it all. For real, Anna? This is too much. Consider it a bonus for being a top-notch husband. Plus, you gotta look the part at work, right? I winked, tossing him a box with a high-end suit. Work was where we really kicked butt together. I poured everything I knew into this guy, teaching him the ropes, the shortcuts, the long plays. Before long, Alex was nailing it, climbing the ladder till he landed a big promotion. Head of the department, can you believe it? He beamed, still a bit dazed. Proud? I'm beyond. You earned it, with a little help from your favorite mentor. I teased, but inside, I was all warm and fuzzy. We were a dream team. Then, out of nowhere, I hit a snag. Started feeling off, like my engine was running low. After a few days of brushing it off, I headed to the clinic. The doc's frown told me it wasn't just a bug. We need to run some tests, Anna. Might take a few days. My mind raced to work. Shit, I've got a mountain of stuff to handle. Alex, you think you can cover for me? Just till I get this sorted? Alex, ever my rock, didn't blink. Of course, babe. You've got nothing to worry about. I'll handle it. I spent the next few nights at the clinic, my laptop glued to me, prepping everything Alex needed to keep the wheels turning at work. Despite feeling like crap, I made sure he had every detail, every document, every plan laid out. Just follow the playbook, Alex. It's all there. I told him over the phone, my voice barely above a whisper. Got it, boss, he joked, trying to keep the mood light. You just focus on getting better. I've got this. But as the days stretched out and my return to work got delayed, I leaned on Alex more and more. Each call, each email, I could sense he was feeling the pressure, but also thriving under it. You're doing great, Alex. Just a bit longer, I promise, I reassured him, but the guilt was gnawing at me for dumping this on him. Don't sweat it, Anna. We're in this together, right? You'd do the same for me, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice, mixed with a hint of something else. Pride? Excitement? Hard to tell. Back on my feet and back at work, I barely had time to catch my breath before my boss called me in. Anna, you've been away. Alex stepped in, and, well, he nailed it. He started, not beating around the bush. I braced myself, expecting a pat on the back for training him so well, but instead, I got sucker punched. He's taking over your position. You'll be moved to a different department. Lower profile, he finished, avoiding my gaze. I was floored. All the work I'd poured into those negotiations, every strategy, every word of that winning speech, was mine. Yet, here I was, getting sidelined in my own game. But, I laid the groundwork for that. It was all me, I wanted to scream. But I bit my tongue, thinking of Alex's career, his pride. Understood, was all I managed, my voice a mix of defeat and disbelief. Coming home, I found Alex, all smiles and victory. Heard you got the news. Babe, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen, he said, but his eyes didn't match his words. They were dancing, celebrating. Yeah, sorry, doesn't quite cut it, Alex. This was my deal, my job. I shot back, anger bubbling up. Hey, let's not get nasty. We're in this together, right? He replied, his tone too light, too dismissive for the bomb he'd just dropped on us. That's when the dynamic shifted. My paycheck shrunk, while his ballooned. And with the money came a change in Alex. He started throwing around words like breadwinner and freeloader, stinging me every chance he got. I tried to shake it off, remind myself of the man I married. He loves me, this is just stress talking, I'd tell myself, but the doubts were creeping in. Then came the nights he wouldn't come home, the excuses so thin you could see right through them. Working late, babe, big deals on the line. He'd text, but the silence of the house screamed the truth. Finally, I'd had enough. We need to talk, Alex. This isn't working. Where the hell are you every night? I demanded, cornering him one morning after he'd sneaked in at dawn. Oh, come on, Anna. You should be grateful I'm still here. A guy like me, with options? He threw back, his arrogance filling the room like a bad smell. That was the moment I knew. The man I loved, the partner I trusted, was gone, replaced by this stranger, spewing insults and taking me for granted. Every day at the office turned into a nightmare faster than I could have ever imagined. My work, my ideas, everything I had poured my heart and soul into, were now being presented under Alex's name. He had compiled an extensive report, a masterpiece of all my projects, and handed it over to the board as his own. The revelation was a gut punch, leaving me winded and betrayed. The board's decision was swift and merciless. Anna, we're letting you go, they said, their words clinical, detached. Your performance has been lacking. The irony of their words, considering my work was flourishing under Alex's guise, wasn't lost on me. I was being fired for failing to perform tasks I hadn't even been credited for. Shell-shocked, I returned home, a storm brewing within me. Alex was there, humming some tune, oblivious to the bombshell about to drop. We need to talk, I stated, my voice ice-cold, cutting through the pretense of normalcy. He turned, that familiar smirk playing on his lips. Sure, what's up? It's over, Alex. I know everything. How you claimed my work as your own, how you got me fired. I spat out, each word laced with venom. For a moment, his facade slipped, revealing a flicker of guilt, but it was quickly replaced by defiance. Oh, come on, Anna. You're being dramatic. I just played the game better. Played the game? You backstabbed me, Alex. You destroyed my career for your gain. My voice rose, a crescendo of anger and hurt. He shrugged, that smugness returning. Look, Anna, I got tired of always being the second fiddle. I saw an opportunity, and I took it. This was about survival. About advancing. You would have done the same. I was aghast. How dare you? I would never do what you've done. I brought you into my world, taught you everything, and this is how you repay me? Alex's response was cold, calculated. You're just upset because you're not on top anymore. Face it, Anna, this is how the world works. I'm just better at it than you. The finality in his voice, the outright dismissal of our history, our love, was the last straw. I want a divorce, Alex. And you need to leave. Now. His laugh was bitter, filled with a disdain I'd never heard before. Fine by me. I was getting bored anyway. You think you're the only game in town? I've got prospects, Anna. Without you holding me back, I'll reach heights you couldn't even dream of. Watching him pack, a part of me wanted to scream, to rage, to make him see the magnitude of his betrayal. But another part, a quieter, more resigned voice, whispered that this was the end of a chapter. A painful, brutal conclusion to a story I thought would have a happier ending. After discovering the betrayal, I didn't waste a second. The shared account we had was bone dry. Alex had cleaned us out, transferring a whopping $320,000 to his account. The shock of it nearly floored me, but I wasn't about to let him get away with it. I reached out to a lawyer, someone known for not playing nice when it came to dirty games like this. Sitting across from my lawyer, I laid it all out. He took everything, every damn cent. Can you believe that? I said, my anger boiling over with each word. The lawyer, a no-nonsense type with a reputation for being a bulldog in court, didn't even blink. I've seen worse. Let's go after him. You're entitled to half of that money at the very least. he declared, already flipping through the legal texts with a predator's grin. So, we sued. Dragged Alex and his sneaky theft into the glaring light of a courtroom. The process was grueling, dragging my already battered heart through the mud, but it was worth it. The court didn't have any patience for Alex's flimsy defenses. He claims he earned that money. My lawyer scoffed during one of our prep sessions, shaking his head in disbelief. But we've got the bank records, the documents. He's going down. And go down he did. The judge saw right through Alex's act and ordered him to cough up $160,000. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about drawing a line, showing him he couldn't just trample over me and walk away scot-free. With the lawsuit out of the way, I pushed forward with the divorce. I was done, completely and utterly done. I want my name back, I told the lawyer. My life back. The divorce papers were a mere formality after the legal battle we just won. I watched as Alex signed them, his face a mask of defeat. Anna, can't we? He started, but I cut him off. Save it, Alex. It's over. You made sure of that, I said, my voice cold, final. Walking out of that office, I felt lighter, despite the turmoil that had become my life. It was over. I was free of him, of us. My former surname felt like a shield, a piece of me I'd reclaimed from the wreckage. But life had one more curveball to throw at me. During a routine checkup, still reeling from the divorce and the legal drama, the doctor dropped a bombshell. You're pregnant, she said, her tone gentle, knowing how much my world had already been rocked. Pregnant. With Alex's child. The news was a jolt, a confusing mix of joy and fear. For a moment, I considered telling him, but the thought was fleeting. No, this was my new start, my chance to build something beautiful from the ashes of my past. I'm moving forward, without him, I resolved, cradling the burgeoning new life within me, ready to face whatever came next on my own terms. After the storm had passed, I set my sights on a new horizon. I wasn't just looking for a new job, I was on the hunt for a fresh start, a place that would value me and the new life I was about to bring into the world. I sent my resume to several big names, hoping my reputation as a sharp mind in the industry hadn't been completely tarnished by recent events. The response was more than I could have hoped for. Interviews lined up back to back, each company more eager than the last to bring me on board. It was during one particular interview that I found what I was looking for, a company that didn't just see me as a potential asset, but as a person. We've heard a lot about you, and we're impressed. The hiring manager started, his tone sincere. We're ready to offer you a competitive package, and yes, we're talking a significant bump in salary and a work schedule that fits your needs. I leaned in, ready to negotiate, but also to lay all my cards on the table. I appreciate that, really. But there's something you should know, I'm expecting. The manager paused, his expression unreadable for a moment, but then he smiled. Congratulations. That's not a problem. We offer remote work options, and we'd be more than happy to accommodate any appointments or needs you might have. It was more than I had dared to hope for. Thank you, I said, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I won't let you down. With the job secured, my next project was my apartment. It needed a makeover, not just a fresh coat of paint, but a transformation into a home ready to welcome a child. I pored over designs and themes, wanting everything to be perfect. In between setting up the nursery and picking out the softest, safest baby gear, I started attending courses for expectant mothers. It wasn't just about learning the basics of childcare, it was about connecting with other women going through the same whirlwind of emotions and changes. We shared stories, advice, and more than a few laughs about the wild ride of pregnancy. Okay, so I read that babies can hear us in there, I mentioned during one session, tapping my belly gently. Started talking to yours yet? One of the moms chuckled, patting her own bump. Oh, all the time. I'm pretty sure mine's already sick of my voice. It was a community, a support network I hadn't realized I'd needed until I found myself in the thick of it. Every book I read, every class I attended, I felt more prepared, more excited for what was to come. As life started to look up for me, word got around about Alex's rapid descent from his short-lived throne. Mutual friends, the kind you keep out of courtesy rather than affection, couldn't wait to spill the details. Heard about Alex? One pinged me, almost too eager. Bombed big time at your old place. They canned him. I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of vindication, but it was bittersweet. Really? That's unfortunate, I replied, keeping it cool but curious. What happened? Got too big for his boots. Messed up some major deals, lost the company a fortune. Now he's out on his ass, drowning in debt. Fancy cars and designer suits don't come cheap, huh? The friend typed back, a virtual smirk in their tone. The news didn't surprise me. Alex had always had a taste for the finer things, a taste he clearly couldn't afford on his own. His downfall was inevitable, but I didn't take pleasure in his misery. Well, maybe just a little. Then, out of the blue, my old employer reached out, trying to woo me back with promises and apologies. We were wrong, they said. We need you back, Anna. You were the brains behind it all. Tempting as it was to gloat, I declined. Thanks, but no thanks. I've moved on. Found a better fit, I told them firmly, my pride and my new job giving me all the satisfaction I needed. Amidst this, Alex had the audacity to reach out, his message popping up unexpectedly. Anna, we should talk. Heard about the baby. I think we can make this work, for the sake of our family, he wrote, desperation seeping through his words. I stared at the screen, incredulous. After everything, he thought he could just waltz back into my life. Family? You've got a funny way of showing you care, Alex. I'm doing just fine on my own, thanks, I replied, my laughter bitter. His pleas continued, but I wasn't the same woman he left. Look, Anna, I'm in a rough spot. I made mistakes, but we can start over. For our child, he tried again, playing what he thought was his ace. I couldn't help but laugh, a real, hearty laugh this time. Start over? With you? Alex, you're not listening. I'm happy. Truly happy. Without you. Our child will have everything they need, and you? You're not part of this equation. Good luck with your debts. And with that, I blocked him. The chapter of my life with Alex was closed, sealed shut with the knowledge that I was better off. I had my child, my dignity, and a future bright with promise. Life took on a new rhythm with the arrival of my son. The challenges and heartaches of the past seemed to fade into the background as I navigated the joys and sleepless nights of motherhood. I remember calling my mom, excitement bubbling in my voice. He's here, Mom. You're a grandma. I told her, barely containing my happiness. Her response was immediate. I'm catching the next flight out. You're not doing this alone. True to her word, Mom was by my side in no time, her presence a comforting constant as I found my footing as a new parent. It wasn't long before we settled into a routine, and with her help, I was back at work, feeling more determined than ever. The idea of buying a house started to take shape in my mind, a place where we could grow as a family, a stable home for my son and enough space for Mom to stay comfortably. During one of our late-night talks, as we shared a pot of tea and watched the baby sleep, Mom brought up the topic of Alex. Heard your ex is running himself ragged, juggling jobs to keep afloat, she said, a note of concern in her voice. I sighed, the mention of Alex still a sour note in my otherwise harmonious life. Yeah, well, he made his bed. Now he has to lie in it. Mom nodded, then hesitated before adding, you could sue him for child support, you know. It's his responsibility too. I shook my head, the thought unappealing. No, Mom. I don't want his money. Or anything from him, really. We're better off without that tie to him. I want to close that chapter for good. Mom seemed to understand, but she pressed on gently. Just think about it, okay? For your son's sake. The topic weighed on me, but deep down, I knew my decision was final. I wanted a clean break from Alex, a future untainted by the past. The idea of the house became a plan in motion. I found myself browsing listings, imagining our lives in each space. "What do you think, Mom? Too ambitious?" I'd ask, showing her pictures of backyards and spacious kitchens. "Nothing is too ambitious for you," she'd reply, her faith in me unwavering. "You've proven that time and again." My son's laughter filled our apartment, a sound that made every hardship worth it. My career was on an upward trajectory, my personal life rich with love and support. The house, when we finally found it, felt like the last piece of a puzzle clicking into place, a symbol of new beginnings and hard-won peace.
The dining room table was set for 4, the soft glow of candlelight illuminating the carefully arranged place settings. I took a deep breath, savoring the aroma of the roasted chicken and fresh herbs wafting from the kitchen. This was supposed to be a quiet family dinner, a chance to reconnect after Dane's latest business trip, but the sound of the front door slamming open shattered the tranquil atmosphere. "Where are you?" Dane's gruff voice echoed through the hallway. I stepped out of the kitchen, my heart sinking at the sight of his disheveled appearance and the scowl etched on his face. "The kids will be down any minute. What's going on?" He thrust a manila envelope at me, his eyes cold and unforgiving. "I want a divorce, Alara. It's over." The words hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. Divorce? After 17 years of marriage, countless sacrifices, and 3 beautiful children, he was ready to throw it all away? Dad? Meredith's trembling voice came from the top of the stairs. Dane whirled around, his jaw clenched. "You're coming with me. I'm taking custody." "What? No." I stepped between them, shielding Meredith from his rage. "You can't just waltz in here and demand that." "Watch me," he sneered, towering over me. "You think a judge is going to grant custody to a part-time gallery worker? I'm the breadwinner, the one with the means to provide for her." Callie and Ian emerged from their rooms, eyes wide with fear at the commotion. Dane's tirade was tearing our family apart, right before their eyes. "Stop it!" I cried, my voice thick with emotion. "You're scaring the children." He leaned in, his breath hot against my face. "Wake up, Alara. This is the real world. And in the real world, money talks. You've got no chance against me." In that moment, something shifted inside me. The fear and heartbreak gave way to a simmering rage, fueling a determination I didn't know I possessed. I would not let this man destroy my family any longer. "We'll see about that," I said, meeting his gaze with unwavering resolve. With trembling hands, I packed a small suitcase, trying to muffle the sound of my sobs. Meredith's cries echoed from the other room, tearing my heart to shreds. "How could Dane do this to our family?" "Mom, please don't go." Callie clung to me, her face streaked with tears. I pulled her into a tight embrace. "I don't have a choice, honey, but I promise I'll fight for us to be together again." Ian stood in the doorway, clutching his favorite stuffed animal, his eyes wide and frightened. "Where are we going?" "We're going to stay with Grandma for a little while," I said, forcing a reassuring smile. Dane appeared, his face like stone. "Time's up, let's go." I turned to Meredith, her slender frame racked with sobs as she clung to the doorframe. "Mom, don't leave me. Please." Dane grabbed her arm, yanking her away. "That's enough. You're coming with me." "No." I lunged forward, but Dane shoved me back, his strength overpowering me. "Stay out of this, Alara. She's mine now." He dragged a screaming Meredith down the hallway, her anguished cries piercing my soul. I sank to the floor, my body numb with shock and grief. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? At my mother's house, Agnes pulled me into her arms, her gentle touch a balm for my broken heart. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart, but you can't give up. You have to fight for your children." Her words ignited a spark of determination deep within me. Dane thought he could trample all over me, but he was wrong. I would burn his world to the ground if that's what it took to get my family back. Over the next few weeks, I consulted lawyers, trying to find someone who could help me gain leverage against Dane's wealth and power. Finally, I met with Mrs. Green, a sharp-tongued attorney with a reputation for taking on tough cases. "Your husband is a real piece of work," she said, flipping through the stack of papers detailing Dane's misdeeds. "Embezzlement, fraud, tax evasion, he's been a busy boy." My heart raced. "Can you use this against him, in the custody case?" Mrs. Green fixed me with a steely gaze. This is the kind of ammunition we need, but are you prepared for the fallout? He won't go down without a vicious fight. I thought of Meredith's anguished cries, of Callie and Ian's confusion and heartbreak. Dane had torn our lives apart without a second thought. It was time for him to face the consequences. I'm ready, I said, my voice resolute. Let's take him down. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at me. Dark circles ringed my eyes, a testament to the sleepless nights spent agonizing over Meredith's absence. But I couldn't afford to crumble, not now. Not when so much was at stake. With a deep breath, I steeled my resolve and headed to the art gallery, where I'd agreed to pick up a few shifts. Keeping busy was the only way to stay sane during this living nightmare. Alara, is that you? I froze at the familiar voice, turning to see Tom, an old friend from college, standing behind the counter. Tom, what are you doing here? He grinned, that same mischievous smile I remembered from our younger days. I own this place now. Well, co-own it with my wife. But enough about me. What's going on with you? You look like hell. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. The pain and anger I'd been bottling up finally finding release. I told him everything. Dane's sudden demand for divorce, the custody battle, the evidence Mrs. Green had dug up about his shady business dealings. Tom's expression hardened, his jovial demeanor replaced by a steely resolve. That son of a bitch. He's not getting away with this, Alara. Not on my watch. What do you mean? He leaned in, his voice low. I've got connections. People who can dig up dirt on your scumbag ex. If he thinks he can just waltz in and destroy your family, he's got another thing coming. A glimmer of hope kindled in my chest. After weeks of feeling powerless, I finally had an ally in my corner. You'd do that for me? Tom placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Of course. We've been friends forever, and friends don't let friends get screwed over by low-life dirtbags like Dane. Over the next few days, Tom's network of informants went to work, uncovering a trail of evidence that painted a damning picture of Dane's business practices. Embezzlement, tax evasion, even whispers of an affair, it seemed there was no depth to which he wouldn't sink. Each new revelation was like a dagger to my heart, but it also fueled my determination to bring him down. This man, who had once sworn to love and cherish me, had become a stranger, a monster willing to sacrifice everything for his own greed and ego. We've got him, Tom said, sliding a thick manila envelope across the table. Everything we need to bury that bastard in court. I flipped through the documents, my hands trembling. Photos of Dane with another woman, bank statements detailing his financial crimes. It was all there, laid out in black and white. Thank you, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. Tom's expression softened. Just promise me one thing. When this is all over, you'll find a way to be happy again. You and those kids deserve a fresh start, away from that toxic son of a bitch. I nodded, determination burning in my chest like a wildfire. Don't worry. By the time I'm through with Dane, he'll be the one begging for mercy. The envelope felt like a lead weight in my hands as I approached Dane's house. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of anxiety and anticipation coursing through my veins. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for, the chance to expose Dane's deceit and fight for my family. The door swung open, and there he stood, his expression a mask of arrogance. Alara, what a surprise! We need to talk. I brushed past him, entering the house that had once been my home, now a cold and unfamiliar place. What's this about? Dane crossed his arms, his tone laced with impatience. I took a deep breath, steadying my nerves. I know what you've been up to, Dane. The embezzlement, the affairs, all of it. His eyes widened, but he quickly regained his composure, letting out a derisive laugh. You're delusional. You have no proof. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope, spreading the damning evidence across the coffee table. Bank statements, photographs, everything Tom had uncovered. Dane's face drained of color as he stared at the incriminating documents. Where did you get these? That's not important. I met his gaze, my voice unwavering. What's important is that I have everything I need to take you down in court. You're not going to win this custody battle, Dane. Not after the judge sees what a lying, cheating scumbag you really are. His nostrils flared, his hands clenching into fists. You think this is a game, Alara? You have no idea what you're up against. Don't threaten me. I took a step closer, my anger rising like a tidal wave. You're the one who threw our family away like it was nothing. You're the one who broke Meredith's heart and made our children cry. And now you're going to pay the price. Dane's jaw tightened, his eyes burning with fury. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. As he stormed out of the room, I allowed myself a small smile of satisfaction. The mighty Dane Moore was finally starting to crack, and I was the one holding the hammer. Later that night, as I tucked Callie and Ian into bed at my mother's house, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. For the first time in weeks, I didn't have to hide the truth from my children or put on a brave face. Mom? Callie's voice was soft, her eyes wide with concern. Are you and Dad getting a divorce? I took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. Yes, honey, but it's for the best, I promise. Your dad, he's done some things that have hurt our family, things that can't be forgiven. Ian crawled into my lap, his small arms wrapping around my neck. Are we going to be okay? I pressed a kiss to the top of his head, my heart swelling with love for these two incredible kids. Of course we are. We have each other, and that's all that matters. No matter what happens, I'll always be here for you both. Always. As they drifted off to sleep, I allowed a few tears to spill down my cheeks. This battle had taken an immense emotional toll, but seeing the way my children looked at me, with trust, with love, made every sacrifice worth it. Dane might have money and power, but he would never have what truly mattered, a family who loved him unconditionally. And in the end, that would be his downfall. Mrs. Green's office was a sleek, modern space, but the weight of the upcoming custody battle hung heavy in the air. I sank into the chair across from her desk, my hands trembling slightly as I clutched the thick file containing the evidence against Dane. You look nervous, she observed, her piercing gaze missing nothing. I forced a tight smile. Can you blame me? This is everything. My whole future with my kids hangs in the balance. Which is why we need to be prepared for anything. Mrs. Green rifled through the documents, her brow furrowing. Your husband is a real piece of work. The affairs, the financial crimes, he's left quite the paper trail. So you think we have a strong case? She fixed me with a pointed look. I think we have the ammunition to bury him. But Dane isn't going to go down without a vicious fight. He's got money, connections, he'll throw everything he has at trying to discredit you. My stomach twisted into knots at the thought. After everything Dane had put me through, I couldn't bear the idea of losing my children, too. What do I need to do? I leaned forward, my voice laced with determination. I'll do whatever it takes. Mrs. Green's expression softened ever so slightly. Stay strong. Don't let him rattle you, no matter what underhanded tactics he tries. The truth is on our side. We just need to make sure the judge sees it that way. A few days later, Dane and I met for a mediated discussion, our respective lawyers in tow. As I entered the room, my breath caught in my throat at the sight of Meredith sitting beside her father, her eyes hollow and haunted. The ache in my heart was physical. Alara, Dane greeted me with a cold sneer. I see you've brought your pitbull of an attorney, ready to admit defeat. Before I could respond, Mrs. Green stepped forward, her presence commanding. I'd watch my tone if I were you, Mr. Moore. We have more than enough evidence to expose your illicit activities. Dane's face flushed crimson, his hands clenching into fists. You lying. Dad, stop! Meredith's voice cracked like a whip, cutting through the tension. Just stop. We all fell silent, stunned by her outburst. Meredith had always been the quiet, reserved one. To see her stand up to her father like that was shocking. Dane turned on her, his eyes flashing with rage. How dare you speak to me that way? I'm your father, and you'll show me some respect. Respect? Meredith's laugh was bitter, devoid of humor. Why should I respect someone who tore our family apart, who made my little brother and sister cry, who cheated on Mom and treated her like garbage? Her words hit Dane like a physical blow, and for a moment the mask of arrogance slipped, revealing the ugly truth beneath. A man consumed by greed and ego, someone who valued power over his own family. As we left the mediation, Mrs. Green pulled me aside, her expression grim. He's unraveling. Dane knows his actions are indefensible, and it's making him sloppy, reckless. I glanced over at Meredith, still trembling from her confrontation with her father. Did you see the way she stood up to him? My little girl is finally seeing him for who he truly is. A sad smile tugged at Mrs. Green's lips. Then let's make sure her bravery wasn't in vain. It's time to take this bastard down once and for all. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension as Dane and I took our seats on opposite sides of the aisle. I could feel his glare boring into me, but I refused to meet his gaze, focusing instead on the 3 empty chairs where my children should be sitting. All rise for the Honorable Judge Reynolds. As the judge entered, my heart hammered in my chest. This was it, the moment that would decide the fate of my family. I glanced over at Mrs. Green, who gave me the slightest of nods, a silent reassurance that we were ready. The proceedings began with Dane's lawyer painting a picture of him as a dedicated father and successful businessman, someone who could provide lavishly for his children. I fought the urge to scoff out loud. Finally, it was our turn to present our case. Mrs. Green wasted no time in getting to the heart of the matter, systematically laying out the evidence of Dane's misdeeds. Bank statements, photos, even testimony from former business associates. Dane's smug expression slowly crumbled as the weight of his lies and betrayals was laid bare for all to see. By the time Mrs. Green finished, his face was ashen, his hands clenched into tight fists. "Would you like to take the stand, Mr. Moore?" The judge's voice was even, giving no hint of her thoughts on the revelations. Dane opened his mouth, no doubt prepared to spew forth more lies and excuses. But before he could speak, a quiet voice cut through the courtroom. "Don't bother, Dad. We already know the truth." Her eyes shining with unshed tears. My breath caught in my throat as she made her way to the witness stand, her slender frame trembling slightly. "Your Honor, I'd like to say a few words, if I may." The judge nodded, and Meredith took a deep breath, steadying herself. "For years my father has lied to us, to my mother, to my siblings, to everyone around him. He's cheated, stolen, and manipulated his way through life, caring only about himself and his own greed." Her voice wavered, but she pressed on, her gaze finding mine across the courtroom. "But my mom? She's the strongest person I know. She's the one who held our family together while Dad was off doing God knows what. She's the one who dried our tears and made us feel safe, even when everything was falling apart around us." Tears streamed down Meredith's face, but her words were laced with a strength and resilience that made my heart swell with pride. If anyone deserves to have us in their lives, it's her. Not the man who treated us like afterthoughts, who saw us as possessions to be won or lost. A hush fell over the courtroom as Meredith stepped down from the stand, her words hanging heavy in the air. Dane stared at her, his expression unreadable, before dropping his head into his hands. In that moment, I knew we had won. Dane's carefully constructed facade had crumbled, laid bare by the heartfelt words of his own daughter. He was a broken man, undone by the very family he had sacrificed for his own selfish desires. As the judge called for a recess, Mrs. Green pulled me into a fierce hug, her eyes shining with triumph. "You did it, Alara. You fought for your family, and you won." I clung to her, my body trembling with a heady mix of relief and elation. The battle had been long and brutal, but in the end, love and truth had prevailed. And as I looked toward the future, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, my children and I would face them together, a united front stronger than ever before. The courtroom was deathly silent as Judge Reynolds re-entered, her gaze sweeping over the crowd. I felt Meredith's hand slip into mine, her slender fingers trembling with nervous anticipation. This was it, the moment we'd been fighting for. After careful consideration of the evidence presented, the judge began, her voice ringing out in the hushed chamber, "I hereby award full custody of Meredith Moore, Callie Moore, and Ian Moore to their mother, Alara Moore." A collective gasp rippled through the room, but I barely heard it over the roaring in my ears. We'd won. Against all odds, against Dane's wealth and power, we had won. Meredith threw her arms around me, her body shaking with relieved sobs. I held her close, pressing my face into her hair as tears streamed down my cheeks. My babies were coming home. Across the aisle, Dane sat frozen, his face ashen and drawn. As our eyes met, something flickered in his gaze, a glimmer of shame, of regret, before the shutters slammed closed once more. "This is an outrage!" His lawyer leapt to his feet, his voice booming through the courtroom. "You can't possibly think this woman is fit to raise those children." "That's quite enough. Judge Reynolds fixed him with a stern look. Mr. Moore's actions, his infidelity, his financial crimes, his utter disregard for his family have made it abundantly clear that he is not only unfit to retain custody, but a detriment to his children's well-being. Dane opened his mouth, no doubt poised to unleash another torrent of lies and excuses. But one withering glance from the judge silenced him, his shoulders slumping in defeat. As we stepped out into the courthouse lobby, a tremor of disbelieving joy rippled through me. We were free from Dane's tyranny, free to start fresh and rebuild the family he had so callously torn apart. Callie and Ian barreled into my arms, their faces alight with happiness. Mrs. Green stood off to the side, a proud smile tugging at her lips. "I can't thank you enough," I murmured, overcome with gratitude for the woman who had helped make this impossible dream a reality. She waved a dismissive hand. "Don't mention it. Seeing that pompous ass taken down a few pegs was thanks enough." A commotion at the entrance drew our attention, and we turned to see Dane emerging, his immaculate suit rumpled and his tie askew. A cluster of reporters swarmed him, shouting questions and snapping photos as he tried in vain to shield his face. "Mr. Moore, is it true you embezzled millions from your company? Care to comment on the allegations of infidelity? How does it feel to lose everything, your job, your money, your family?" Dane froze, his eyes finding mine through the chaos. For a fleeting moment the mask slipped, revealing the broken man beneath. A man who had sacrificed everything for greed and now had nothing left. As the reporters closed in, their flashing cameras blinding him, Dane did the only thing he could. He turned and ran, disappearing into the crowd like a disgraced phantom. I watched him go, a strange sense of pity mingling with my vindication. He had brought this reckoning upon himself, and now he would have to live with the consequences of his actions. But as I looked at my children, their faces aglow with joy and relief, I knew that his punishment paled in comparison to the reward that awaited us, a fresh start, free from the shackles of his toxic influence. A new chapter was beginning, one written in love, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds of family. And this time, I held the pen. The warm summer breeze carried the scent of freshly mown grass as I watched Callie and Ian chase each other across the backyard, their laughter ringing out in the peaceful afternoon. A contented smile tugged at my lips. This was the life I had fought so hard for, the simple moments of joy that Dane's toxicity had nearly stolen from us. "Mom?" Meredith appeared in the doorway, her expression pensive. "Can we talk for a minute?" "Of course, sweetie." I patted the spot beside me on the porch swing, and she sank down onto the weathered wood with a sigh. For a long moment she was silent, her gaze trained on the horizon as if weighing her words carefully. Finally she spoke, her voice little more than a whisper. "Do you ever wonder what might have happened if things had been different? If Dad hadn't—" She trailed off, but the unspoken words hung heavy in the air. If he hadn't lied, if he hadn't cheated, if he hadn't torn our family apart with his greed and selfishness. I reached out, taking her hand in mine and giving it a gentle squeeze. "Meredith, what your father did was unforgivable. He hurt us in ways that can never be undone, but dwelling on the past, on what might have been, will only breed more pain and resentment." Tears glistened in her eyes, and for a moment I saw the frightened little girl who had watched her world crumble before her. "I know he's a terrible person. I know he didn't deserve us, but I can't help missing the man he used to be, you know, before all of this happened." My heart ached for her, for the innocence she had lost far too soon. Pulling her into my embrace, I stroked her hair, remembering all the nights I had rocked her to sleep as a baby. "It's okay to mourn the person he once was, sweetie. What your father became. That's on him, not you. You did nothing wrong." Meredith nodded, sniffling softly as she clung to me. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for her resilience, for her unwavering strength throughout this entire ordeal. "I'm so proud of you, you know that?" I murmured, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "You stood up to him when it mattered most, even when it was hard. You helped me fight for our family." A watery smile curved her lips. "We're a team, right? The four of us against the world. Always." As Callie and Ian bounded up the porch steps, sweaty and breathless from their games, I pulled them all close, reveling in the warmth and love that radiated from my little tribe. We had been through hell and back, but we had emerged on the other side, battered but unbroken. Later that night, as I tucked them into bed, I couldn't help but reflect on the long, arduous journey that had led us here. The lies, the betrayal, the agonizing custody battle, it had all been a crucible, testing the bounds of our love and resilience. But in the end, we had passed that test with flying colors. Dane's selfishness and greed had nearly destroyed us, but it had also revealed an unshakable truth, that our family was built on a foundation stronger than any force he could wield against us. As I drifted off to sleep, surrounded by the peaceful sounds of my children's breathing, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. The future was a blank canvas, filled with endless possibilities and the promise of new beginnings. And this time, I held the brush, ready to paint a masterpiece of love, hope, and unbreakable family bonds that would endure long after the scars of yesterday had faded away.